Welcome back to the Go to Go podcast, man. Episode 103, week 2 of the NFL season right upon us, man. Gonna jump into some hot or nots this week, discuss, the week 1 outcomes, what we like, what we didn't like, and jump into the Pickems as well. Hot or not, man. Why don't you go ahead, kick us off this week. Return to hot or not.
Yeah, return to hot or not. All right. First hot or not of the NFL season. Hot or not, none of the teams that drafted a first-round QB this season found their QB1.
I'm going to say that it is a hot take. Caleb Williams obviously didn't impress. Bo Nix didn't really impress. Jaden Daniels didn't really impress so far in week 1. Still haven't seen Drake May out on the field. But I'm going to say overreaction a little bit. I mean, Jaden Daniels saw his rushing upside. We talked about it coming into the season that his legs would be a big factor. I think he carried the ball maybe 20 times or something near there. Caleb Williams obviously getting adjusted to NFL game speed. A lot of jokes. It's not Pac-12 football. He can't run around backwards for an extra 20 yards. Bo Nix, besides, the 2 turnovers, he had a couple spots where he did look good. Look for him to improve, limit those turnovers. Part of growing pains this week 1 of the NFL season. Got another game added onto the season, so it's a long season. I expect these guys to be just fine, but I think it's a little bit of an overreaction, especially week 1, first career start. The lights are bright for those young guys.
All right, and the next 2, we're staying in the AFC North, right up your alley. Hot or not, the Cincinnati Bengals won't make the playoffs this season.
Let's say that is not a hot take. Week 1 against the New England Patriots, thought the Patriots would be, if not the worst, one of the worst teams in the NFL. They go out in Cincinnati and beat the Bengals. Tough for Bengals fans. Joe Burrow didn't look like himself. Jamar Chase was out there. It just didn't look right for Cincinnati that week. Joe Burrow still coming off that thumb injury. People question, his grip of the football. How would it affect him coming off that thumb surgery? A lot of guys said that he might not be able to grip a football again. He could grip it, but can he still throw the same? This team has a lot of holes outside, their superstar talent. They lose Joe Mixon, who had, I didn't like the pickup by the Texans, but he had a great week last week carrying the football, carrying the rock, and you saw it was a, 1-2 between Zach Moss and Chase Brown. They really don't have, upper end talent at the running back position like they once did. Defense is very spotty outside of a few players. O-line still not good at all for the Bengals. So there's a lot of holes on this team. It's going to be up to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those superstars on the outside to make plays and win games, because you're going to find a tough time doing it elsewhere this season.
All right, and my last one. Hot or not, the Deshaun Watson trade is the worst trade in NFL history.
I'm going to go ahead and say it's not a hot take. Or it is a hot take, excuse me. But
I think you had it right the first time.
I want to say it is a hot take. 1 game into the year. Like I said, not trying to overreact things 1 week into the season. Didn't look good. Listen, Deshaun Watson didn't play good. I talked about this to you the other night. Didn't play good at all. Didn't play, even average. Some moments he had some good balls. Receivers dropped him. Elijah Moore over the middle. Big completion would have been a first down. David Njoku early. He dropped a pass after trying to get those chains moving. So, and the O-line was abysmal. To put it at the least, I don't think Pat Mahomes could have won out and won that game. He could have played better, obviously. But with that O-line, Micah coming off the edge free on that interception where he deflects it off the edge, tip ball, and ends up being a pick. I don't want to say it's the worst trade, but, that $230 million guarantees looking a little head scratcher right now. But long season ahead. O-line get back healthy. Another game under his belt. Timing was an issue. wasn't linked up with those receivers exactly. Jerry Jeudy did touch paint that one touchdown of the game, and that one drive where Deshaun Watson did look good, where he had gotten the ball out quick, which they tried to do the whole game, but it just wasn't working for the Browns. No aspect of football for the Browns worked that day. I mean, even the defense looked abysmal at times. They got some stops, but Dak was having a field day in that first half. It was easy for the Cowboys. They got out to an early lead. DeJuan Jones, who was a standout rookie at tackle last year, he looked lost with Mike on the other side. Too many penalties. Brady said, I think, 30 times, can't go forward if you keep going back. It's simple football. Get in the film room. Week 2 against the Jags, easier opponent. Hopefully they start turning it around because it is a long season, but, one game a week, you got to be able to turn it around. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's not the worst trade just yet. Cleveland fans, it's a long season. We've been at lows, so we'll see what happens, but just a little bit too early. And if you're going to get into Baker Mayfield and how he played, I don't even want to get into that, but
those are my 3.
All right, man. Starting it off, man. One of the teams you doubted this offseason leading into the show, hot or not, the Saints are true contenders in the NFC South.
Okay, I was going to say that was a hot take until you put NFC South on the end. That's not a hot take. I mean, outside of the Saints, really no team. Well, the Bucs, they look good as well, but the Falcons had all the hype. I was higher on them. I mean, we're not even going to talk about the Panthers. We'll get to that in the next segment. And then the Saints, a team I was a lot lower on. Listen, Derek Carr came out, looked like he was back at Fresno State throwing to Devontae Adams out there, man. They literally just were able to do whatever they wanted on offense. Defense had no problem. Bryce Young gave them all the help they needed to look good. With that being said, they did beat the Panthers, who, last season, worst team in the NFL. Coming into the season, some people, including myself, were a little higher on. But regardless, I mean, after that first drive, this Panthers team, it just looks like they didn't take any steps in the right direction. So I'm still holding that question mark over the Saints. I got to see them do it against, another team besides the Panthers or one of these lower teams in the league, because the Saints could just be second worst team in the league. The Panthers are the worst. They're not that good. So I wouldn't say they're overall contenders, but I mean, the way the Falcons looked, the Bucs, they looked pretty solid as well, but going against the Commanders, maybe the only worst team or the worst defense, you would say, behind the Panthers this week in the NFL. So, I mean, I got to say that's not a hot take. They can definitely compete in this division just because of how shaky it looks. So I was wrong. Saints, they can win this division.
Well, I'm not even going to let you get into the next segment because you asked about those first rounders this year. How about a first rounder last year? Hot or not, it's time for Carolina to panic with Bryce Young at QB.
I'm going to say that is a hot take just because, like you mentioned, it was week 1. Now, last season, it didn't show you anything promising. But, I mean, this week 1 didn't look good. It didn't help him, but I would still say, you got at least until November, Thanksgiving, maybe October, until you really, really want to start panicking. That's when you kind of can set your season up. Maybe we start losing some games, pull some players. Now, they did lose Derek Brown. Saw he went down, possibly out for the season. I mean, arguably one of, if not the only bright spot on that defense, I would say J.C. Horn, but you got Derek Carr telling you he has 3 touchdowns on your head. I can't really give you too much credit after that. So, yeah, I wouldn't panic on the Bryce Young button just yet, but if it's like one of those big red emergency buttons, I'm definitely lifting up the cover, getting ready to press it, but I'm not pressing it just yet. There's still some hope. There's still a chance you can close the button cover and you guys are going to be okay. But from the looks of it, no, the button is open and my hand is all the way up getting ready to slam down on it. So, yeah, I would give it a few more weeks. maybe, give this O-line a chance to get together these weapons, give them another week to get on the same page with Bryce, just because, overall, nothing on this team looked good. And no one on this team also helped Bryce Young as well. Like, he didn't get much help. So, yeah, I would say that is a hot take. But if you ask me this question in like 3 weeks, I could definitely see this being an extremely hot take, and Bryce Young just isn't an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, so
but I'm holding out hope.
I'll ask you in a few weeks. See if that hand's hovering that big red button just yet. Last but not least, man, hot or not, J.K. Dobbins will finish as comeback player of the year after his week 1 performance.
Now, this is, one of the teams I've held out hope on, and after week 1 seemed to be right. We talked about Jim Harbaugh, what he's going to bring to that offense, Greg Roman, how they run the ball, that scheme, Dobbins having some familiarity with that offense, and they were pretty much able to impose their will on the Raiders and just run the ball all over them. We knew that's what Harbaugh was going to want to do, bring that physical brand of football. You saw it on both sides of the ball. And the way this team is playing, Justin Herbert kind of just basically did his best J.J. McCarthy impersonation, just being good enough, making the right plays when he needed to, and basically just letting that scheme and that running game kind of carry them. And against the Raiders defense, who I know you were a little higher on, a Raiders team that, we thought could have a chance to make some noise, it looked like they got totally out-schemed and outplayed there this past Sunday. So I think J.K. Dobbins, as long as he's healthy, he gets healthier. Maybe a couple of those big runs he got hawked down on, he gets full strength back in that leg, and he's fully back. Couple of those turn into touchdowns. I don't think it's a hot take at all. As long as he's healthy and as long as that offense is moving, saw a couple of clips going viral today of Joe Alt locking up Max Crosby, looking like he was the right pick, especially for that Chargers team and how they want to play. So, yeah, I think J.K. Dobbins is going to continue to be a focal point of this offense. Now, I believe him and Gus the Bus had similar carries, same amount of splits, but Dobbins had the big highlight runs. He gets healthier. I think he becomes kind of the lead back, kind of similar to how it was in Baltimore when those two guys were there. J.K. Dobbins, main running back, he gets all the explosive runs, and then, you get into the short yardage goal line, you hand it off to the bigger Gus Edwards. But, yeah, man, it's looking like this scheme, this physical brand of football, kind of what was missing from the NFL past couple years. Seems like Harbaugh's trying to bring it back. And overall, this first week, the passing was down in general. A lot of running backs getting a lot of success. So we'll see. But, yeah, after a great performance from J.K. Dobbins, I think he's definitely up there in contention for comeback player of the year.
Yeah, Gus, I think he carried the ball 11 times. J.K., 10 for 135, so 13.5 yards a carry from J.K. last week against the Raiders. Yeah, Christian Wilkins expected him to be, a force. I think I saw him once, and then he kind of disappeared. So saw that from their big payday defensive tackle. Moving on, man, into our week 2 pick'ems. Last week went 11-5. You went 10-6. Not too much of a difference there with our picks. But this week, Thursday Night Football, man, the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills down at Hard Rock Stadium get it kicked off. Dolphins 2-point favorites heading into this one. Who do you like in this matchup?
This is a tough one. I feel like this is one of those games where both of these teams still have a lot of questions unanswered based off of week 1. Two kind of almost very similar games from both of these teams. You got the Bills, who Josh Allen put on the Superman cape against a lesser Cardinals defense and was able to come back and will his team into a victory. And the Dolphins, surprisingly, last season, especially the last couple years, this is a game they lose. They go down early and they can't really climb back into the game. Now, they did get some help from Travis Etienne and some questionable play calling by Doug Peterson. But regardless, we always think of the Miami Dolphins as, super fast team. They get out early, they score all the points and kind of just coast to the win. Whereas this past weekend, they were down 10 points. Was it 17 at half? Yeah, they were down 17 points, down 10 at the half, I believe. And they came back a big fourth quarter, and you just kind of see the benefit of having a Jalen Waddle and a Tyreek Hill. and even Devon A-Chain when he's on the field and healthy, they can just get those chunk plays and kind of, flip the field and flip that field position and put the team into scoring position. So like I said, I still a lot of big questions from either teams. Bills ran the ball a lot, leaned heavy into that run game. Josh Allen still vulturing TDs in the red zone from James Cook. Not much has changed there. Keon Coleman, early, he had some struggles. One of the big things was, can he create separation? Can he get off the line? Had some trouble earlier, but throughout the game, showed some flashes, made a couple big catches down the field and down the stretch for this Bills team. So my main question for the Bills is defensively. Kyler Murray was kind of able to get it going. They tightened up at the end when it mattered, got some stops. Questionable call there at the end. Was it PI? Rev didn't throw the flag, so we're going to say it wasn't. I'm going to pick the Dolphins.
That's like Nicole Roby Coleman. They didn't call it PI. It's not PI.
Yeah, that definitely a questionable call. And we can talk about, all the flags that were thrown this week 1, which is interesting. But regardless, in this Dolphins-Bill game, I like Miami here at home, taking the team with the points, just because, like I mentioned before, I still feel like we don't really know who either of these teams are just yet. Still a lot of questions to be unanswered, and I think this will be a game where we kind of find out what both of these teams are made of. If those guys are healthy, Tyreek, Waddle, Waddle got banged up, did his classic, left for a couple drives, came back, made a big play. That's just a Jaden Waddle experience at this point. Tyreek Hill, I mean, we can talk about the big situation later. That's like a whole nother topic within itself. But everyone's there. Tua leading the league in passing right now. So, yeah, I think this Dolphins offense can be a lot more explosive than the Cardinals offense. And I don't know if Josh Allen can do enough on his own to overcome this Miami Dolphins offense. This early, they're all healthy. All those guys are out there running fast. I want to take a look at the Dolphins running backs because I believe both of them are banged up, A-Chain and Mostert. So maybe we see little Jeff Wilson out there. We'll see. But, yeah, I like Miami here at home. I'm going to take the Dolphins.
Yeah, before I even keep Jeff Wilson on the sideline, let me see Jalen Wright out there. Bills, Dolphins, I think you said it perfectly, man. 2 teams with unanswered questions after week 1. Bills, you mentioned Josh Allen, Superman on the ground, using his legs, putting his body on the line. Not exactly what you want to see from your franchise QB, but it's how Josh Allen plays football, and we know to be at this point, that's what he does. So the Dolphins, on the other hand, you mentioned impressive comeback win, ETN fumble, but shout out Javon Holland punching that ball out at the goal line, forcing the fumble, big turnover while they were going in to score. Definitely questionable play calling. And I'll even go as far to say the Dolphins, once again, questionable play calling. I love Mike McDaniel, but sometimes these get out quick little throws, quick read, not even a quick read, bubble screens, everything he does. Sometimes you got to pass the ball downfield. I know you want to get your guys out in space, the quick guys. It's like they didn't try to push the ball downfield, and with an O-line like they do have, I understand why you're getting the ball out quick. But once again, that didn't work against the Chiefs in the playoffs when you needed it. Want to see a little bit more versatility from this Dolphins offense moving forward. With that being said, that's usually a game they just crumble up, fold, and lose and chalk on to the next week. Not able to score points. The defense held strong. Jalen Ramsey didn't look the best out there and still able to get a win. Wide receivers were having a field day against him. Brian Thomas did look good in his first career game. With Trevor Lawrence, Lawrence showed some flashes of the T-Law that everyone wants to, believe in, that they drafted him to be. You mentioned the Bills, not a lot of weapons on offense. Keon Coleman got it going towards the end, second half. James Cook, we know he's there. Dalton Kincaid was non-existent the whole game. Invisible. Yeah, invisible. Perfect. Couldn't have said it better. So you look at it, Khalil Shakir. Dolphins at home. 4 straight wins for the Bills against the Dolphins. Last win coming at home for the Dolphins, and I believe it was the throw where Josh Allen had it at the goal line, easy touchdown. He just short-armed it. And the Dolphins walked away with a 2-point victory, I believe, or 3, something like that. But, yeah, I got the Dolphins at home. I just got to take them. Tyreek Hill, once again, putting the team on his back. Want to see him do it in big games. Divisional opponent, Thursday night football, prime time. He's got to step up, not drop balls like he did last year in those big games. You mentioned Jalen Waddle dealing with injury, fast twitch guys. With Tyreek and Waddle on this team now for a couple years, it's something you're just used to. Those two guys going in and out of that blue tent. So get back healthy, get back right. I think Jalen Ramsey's going to play a lot better. He's got another week to recover. So I think the Dolphins get the win at home here against the Bills. Moving on, NFC matchup. 49ers travel to Minnesota, play the Vikings, and Sam Darnold 1-0 as a starter for the Vikings.
As an avid and proud San Francisco 49ers hater, I have to come out and admit, last night against the Jets, that 49ers offense looked like one of the best units in football this past weekend. Like, out of every team, defense, offense, special teams, that 49ers offense looked arguably, if not the best, like one of the best units out there in the NFL. I mean, against the Jets defense, the last 2 years with Zach Wilson at the quarterback, all we were hearing was just give us a competent quarterback. Our defense can carry us. Our defense carried us to 7-9 wins. We're going to win 12 games with a competent quarterback. Well, last night, Aaron Rodgers, I didn't think he had the best game. He had an okay game. And that Jets defense just got absolutely destroyed by that 49ers run game in this offense. And honestly, could have been a lot more. They left a couple points on the table. Ayuk dropped one in the end zone. Purdy missed a couple throws down the field as well. They hook up on those, and this game looks a lot uglier. That 49ers offense did not seem to miss a step without Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason steps in, runs all over the Jets. Trent Williams, he came in, looked like the same old Trent Williams. No offseason and no preseason needed. Ayuk looked a little rusty, missed a couple throws, but had a big catch down the stretch. Still making plays. Debo getting involved just as much. George Kittle, he was also getting open. But to me, the big surprise was that 49ers offensive line, where in the past couple years, that was kind of the one weak spot of that offense, especially going up against the Jets defensive line, where this is the heart and soul, the strength of that team. Brock Purdy, when he did step back and pass, had all the time in the world. And then when they were handing the ball off, I mean, it was just 5, 6 yards, 12 yards, 20 yards, whenever they wanted. So, yeah, this 49ers offense is going to continue to be a problem for a lot of teams. And the Vikings, coming off of their, extended preseason win over the Giants, who are an absolute joke. I mean, you can say whatever you want about the Giants. They're just not a good team. I mean, pathetic output, to say the least. So not really sure, if Sam Darnold's still going to be that guy. He was out there throwing routes on air basically against the Giants in that sad defense. So, yeah, I think the 49ers come into town, kind of give them a reality check of what it's like to have, not a competent starting quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I know there's still some Sam Darnold believers out there. I'm not one of them. Partly because I thought Josh Rosen was going to be better. But listen, that's another conversation for another day. This 49ers, this 49ers team is rolling. Do not look like they've missed a step since that Super Bowl, since last season. It looks like they're going to be another contender. It might be a 49ers Chiefs rematch in the Super Bowl. I don't want to overreact, but this 49ers team looked that good. This offense look that good. You put CMC back there. I mean, CMC probably now doesn't play for another, 2-3 weeks to get 100% healthy because they just don't need him out there. I mean, Brock Purdy, you saw what those guys were able to do without him. They just, let McCaffrey sit back, get as healthy as he needs, take his time, and then down the stretch when they get ready for playoffs, he'll be back 100%, and that team goes up to another level. I thought the defense for the 49ers played okay. The Aaron Rodgers and the Jets were able to make some plays here and there. They didn't look like the best unit in football, but that 49ers defense, a lot of star power. Those guys are flying around, more than good enough to help carry this team. And I was impressed with how good the 49ers looked as an Eagles fan. So it hurt me to say all that good things about the Niners, but I think they go on the road, they cover the 6, and they handle business in Minnesota.
Yeah. Before I even get started, shout out Jordan Mason. Everybody in the San Fran front office, head coaching staff needs to be heavily fined because Christian McCaffrey was supposed to play football, did not pick up Jordan Mason leading up to this game, and not able to pick up Jordan Mason because free agent bidding on waivers, but lost me my fantasy week by 3 points. So shout out to him being an honest man. I know he was a little upset at the comments, but yeah, find the 49ers heavily for losing my week 1 matchup.
Wait, hold up. So you think they knew they were going to play Jordan Mason?
Yeah, they told him Friday night he was starting.
No, Kyle Shanahan came out afterwards and said, we did not tell him that. We told him it'd be a heavier workload and be ready, but they didn't tell him he was going to start. There's no way. I don't know. I feel like
the first time someone in the NFL withheld information, but listen, man.
I feel like Vegas and the books would have been on top of that, and the line would have moved before. Like information like that, I don't know. I don't think they would have let people get away. Because people were still betting at Jordan Mason over, like at what was it, like 13 yards or something like that? Like we were still able to get it up to like on before Monday, like before the game. So
yeah, I mean, hey, I lost by 3 points. Not gonna get into that, but against my own brother at that. So, but turning it back to football, you mentioned Jordan Mason, fantastic. The run game, easy. The only one that didn't get it going when they got the ball in the run game was like Deebo Samuel. Jordan Mason was having an easy time. I know 49ers faithful had a lot of trust in that guy from the touches he's gotten over the past few years, shown some flashes, gets that RB1 workload. Now, can it be Jordan Mason's that good, or do the Niners really need McCaffrey? Who knows? But it's a conversation to be had after that week 1 performance in a, top tier defense that the Jets were the last few years, and all the talk, Robert Saleh being the head coach, this and that. The Niners had an easy time moving the ball on the ground. Brock Purdy under free money, by the way, almost every week. I think now he's 16 of 18 games in a row. His under has hit. So shout out that. But, I mean, the Jets, Breece Hall loses that fumble. Fred Warner making plays like he always does. That Niners defense, it was almost like timely defense when they needed it. They punched that football out, only able to get 3 points off of that. After that Jets touchdown, the offense was non-existent. They get a garbage time, touchdown from Tyrod Taylor late in the game. Allen Lazard. The Niners, they just look good. You mentioned that offense, Kyle Shanahan. That's what I want the Dolphins offense to kind of look like, being from the Shanahan scheme. That's just a hopeful take. But the Vikings, on the other hand, you mentioned they played the Giants. Sam Darnold put those ghosts to rest at MetLife Stadium, so happy for him there. But like you said, the 49ers and Giants, 2 different tiers of football when it comes to those 2 teams. So I got the Niners on the road, covering 6 at that. I think it's going to be easy for the Niners, considering last week, I know it was Rodgers' first week back. I said he'd need time to get adjusted coming off that Achilles injury, game reps, game speed, getting back in motion. But I think it's too much to handle for the Vikings. They got some holes on that team. And Sam Darnold, I don't think he's good enough to beat the 49ers, even with Jay Jettas and their week 1 performance with their momentum. So got the Niners on the road with the dub here. Next one up, man, the Seahawks travel to New England. 2 1-0 teams. Seahawks favored by 3.5 points. Who do you like in this matchup?
Listen, man, I'm going to just say this. Surprisingly, I reluctantly took the Seahawks. This could be one of those ones where, by the end of this segment we're talking, I could switch to the Pats just because of the way these 2 teams looked. I mean, Patriots, you steal one in Cincinnati. I know if you know any Patriots fans, they're some of the most delusional people that you will find. And coming off of a win, their first game at home, this stadium's going to be like Tom Brady's back, and they're going for, back-to-back Super Bowl rings, especially, with that little glimmer of hope with beating the Bengals, who a lot of people thought were going to be a contender in the AFC. So this home game for the Patriots, I'm sure, is going to be rocking. And listen, they have reason to be happy. I mean, that run game, Ramondre Stevenson, he finally gets some workhorse numbers, and he was able to be really successful on the ground. Brissett, I mean, he did what he had to do, make some throws when he needed to, but other than that, he played the game manager role. And it looks like this Patriots defense is still, the shades of Belichick are still over at Gerard Mayo, like we mentioned, going over the offseason video, years and years in that system, playing it and then coaching for it as well. So you're not going to see a lot of differences there. And it gave the Bengals some trouble. I think you can talk about, did the Bengals lose or did the Patriots win? I think this Patriots defense and this Patriots team showed a lot of heart, a lot of fight, a really scrappy team. Almost kind of remind me of like a mini version of the Steelers. We'll get to the Steelers there, when we talk about them. But a lot to like for this Patriots team in terms of just grinding out games, finding ways to win. And then the Seahawks on the other side got it done at home against the Broncos. Rookie Drew Lock, you kind of mentioned him, played okay. But, that Bo Nix, yeah. That run game got going with Kenneth Walker. He got a little bit banged up, but Geno down the stretch stepped up, made some big plays, and I think the Seahawks defense looked good as well with Mike McDonald coaching them. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really good game. I don't know what the under is, but I'd probably hammer it. I don't really think either one of these teams score a lot of points. Two solid defenses. I think the Seahawks are slightly better. I'm going to take that offense and those playmakers a smidge over the Patriots, but like I said, man, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots win this game. Maybe take the pass with the points, but yeah, I think the Seahawks do end up winning on the road.
Yeah, with the Patriots, man, I really just think those guys like playing for Gerard Mayo. They had a different type of energy than they sort of did last year with Bill Belichick, a lot younger of a coach. Players coach being that he was in the locker room for all those years. They really looked like they enjoyed playing for Mayo. And that defense didn't miss a step. You mentioned Ramondre Stevenson, the bright spot of that Patriots offense. On the other hand, you had the Seahawks, who did pick on Bo Nix, turning the ball over. Geno Smith showed some flashes from a couple years ago. 33 years old, still showing off the legs too. Some big runs down the field when they needed it. And Kenneth Walker, I think, is the real question mark here. He has an ab injury, 100-yard game. He looked like the Kenneth Walker that could be a bell cow in this league, top-end running back. And they really leaned on him when they needed it. So for the Seahawks, it's a question about Kenneth Walker's health. If he goes and he's full workload, I like the Seahawks in this one, even against the Pats defense. But yeah, the Patriots, they just played good football, good leadership from Brissett, former Patriot himself. He had a couple games when Brady was out. He turned it on. So, there's probably some hope over there in the Patriots organization and the fan base where they're like, yeah, Brissett was going to be that guy when Brady went out. He could do it right now for us. So
yeah, just wait till we get Drake May fully developed. It's going to be over. Yeah, I can hear it now.
Drake May, the next Brady. But I like the Seahawks on the road here. I don't know, like you said, if they cover that 3.5 point spread, but I like them getting the dub. I think it will be a lower scoring game. Two teams that are going to try to control the clock and run the football, move the chains. Don't think you'll see a lot of big plays downfield unless you get Geno airing it out. Brissett's not really going to do it himself, so I'll take the Seahawks on the road, lean heavily on Kenneth Walker if he's good to go. Same with the Pats. They're going to lean on Stevenson. So I think it's going to be a run-heavy game. Team's going to try to control that clock, and I got the Seahawks on the road here in Foxborough. Next one up, man. Battle of the NFC East. New York Giants go to Washington to play the Commanders, and the Commanders, 1.5 point favorite last couple of years. Haven't really said that one.
Yeah, I legitimately do not think there is one positive thing you can say about either one of these teams based on week one, other than if you are a Jaden Daniels fantasy owner. The rushing upside, the 2 rushing touchdowns, those are promising on the fantasy side, but in terms of like real football aspects, uh, neither one of these teams showed anything promising. With that being said, the Commanders are home. I'm going to take them. That's really all there is to say about this game.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Daniels didn't really push the ball downfield through the air. I don't think they really threw the ball past the sticks whatsoever. So, stock on the Commanders' wide receiver side, not high right now. That's for sure. Scary Terry, all of them. But you mentioned the rushing upside. The Giants, who defensive line, we came in talking about them. They questioned, Kayvon Thibodeau in the post-game presser, and he didn't seem to like it, which, I mean, you're the best unit on the field. You're going to have to come and perform, especially when you have a team like this. Daniel Jones, all the Daniel Penny jokes, Danny Dimes, a lot of question marks going on.
I heard a stat. Now, this was crazy. I don't know if you heard it. You might have, but apparently, Daniel Jones has thrown more touchdowns to the other teams than he has to his own receivers since signing his contract extension.
I did see that.
Yo,
I
that's
don't know if
wild,
that was real
bro.
or what. But
I don't know if it's true, but I mean,
I saw a montage of at least 5 or 6 pick sixes.
It sounds about right, fam.
Yeah, because he got hurt too, and then it sounds about right. I mean, hey, I believe it. Watching him last week for that
free Malik Neighbors, man.
Brief time they threw him on red zone, man. But I'm gonna go ahead and also rock with the Commanders at this point. Think Jane Daniels maybe gets in the end zone again. They take care of the football more than the Giants.
Jaden Daniels can definitely get through the end zone on the ground. I don't know if he's gonna throw a touchdown.
I'm saying that, yeah, obviously.
One and run.
But that means he's not likely to throw a pick six like Daniel Jones. On the other hand,
no. But Daniel Jones is likely to throw a pick six.
Exactly.
Against this Commanders defense, who literally got destroyed by Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Baker Mayfield, who looked like he was back at Oklahoma.
Looked like he was back in 2020 in a Browns uniform. You could also have said that. Yeah, I got the Commanders at home. Chargers, Panthers in Carolina. They were saying that they're going to start giving out Panthers tickets when you buy like a Raising Cane's big box or whatever. What do you like here? Chargers 6.5-point favorites.
We kind of already touched on both of these teams a little earlier. I like the Chargers here. I like them to cover the 6.5. I mean, we talked about it in the Hot or Not, man. I mean, the Panthers literally showed you absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing to be optimistic about. They're in the same boat as the Giants and the Commanders. At least somebody in that game has to win. I mean, it could tie, which I could legit see happening. But unfortunately, in this game, I just don't see the Panthers beating the Chargers. The Chargers are going to run the ball for like 200 yards. Ladd McConkey, he looked solid, got in the end zone his first game as a rookie. Seems to be the guy Herbert trusts the most. Palmer didn't have the best game and then was just fighting defenders in the end zone, got ejected. Not too sure what was going on there. But, this Chargers defense also looked a little revamped. Bosa and Mack looked like they turned the clock. Both of those guys made some big plays on the defensive line. Derwin James was flying all over. I like the physical brand of football this Chargers team is going to play. I think Herbert continues to get healthy coming off of that foot injury. He looked fine week one. Didn't have to do much, if all anything, just kind of, make the routine throws. I think we see the same thing, if not less, in this game against the Panthers, where, Derek Carr was looking like a league winner. I'm sure Justin Herbert can go out here and look like a average quarterback and hand the ball off. And, maybe J.K. Dobbins comes out looking like LaDainian Tomlinson. But, yeah, I like the Chargers big here.
Bold comparison there.
Is it against this Panthers defense?
Yeah,
who had Derek Carr looking like Drew Brees? Like, let's just be real here, fam.
Drew Brees, man. For the Panthers, it's about not falling behind like they did in week one against that Saints team, to where, the Saints knew it was Bryce Young dropping back to pass. I think they had a combined 11 carries between Chuba and Miles Sanders or something like that. Not good numbers. Second-year quarterback really hasn't had much. You got to be able to work, the ground game with the air game, which they were unable to do because they fell behind so quickly. And it's tough to ask Bryce Young, still with a shaky offensive line, to do those things. I mean, you got the weapons on the outside now. We talked about they added, they draft Leggett. They get Deontay Johnson in there, who used to be a wide receiver one over there in Pittsburgh, one of the better route runners in the game. Both of those guys non-exist in that offense, along with the rest of the team, offensively and defensively. Chargers, you touched on it perfectly. Joe Alt, I mean, he's an absolute tank on the tackle position. So I expect, more of the same, and Herbert could probably air it out a couple times, maybe, get Johnston some confidence in his game. He had a couple snags last week, crossers over the middle, but yeah, I got the Chargers winning this one. No Derek Brown either. I mean, that defensive tackle position, Derek Brown maybe in there, they slow down that run game, but I think the Chargers have a field day in all aspects. I'll take the -6.5 too. I'm with you on that one. Saints Cowboys in Jerry's world. Your pick on this one, 6.5. Cowgirls favorite.
I think, similar to the Vikings where they came off their extended preseason game, I think the Saints are in the same boat. Just talked about what we don't like about the Panthers. I believe the Saints run into a wall here. And if there's ever a time you don't want to play the Cowboys, it's definitely early in the season because this is when they play their best football. Now, we'll talk. You can talk about the postseason. That's when you do want to play them. But regardless, Dak, big contract extension announced right before the game. Classic Jerry Jones style, all eyes on me, everyone. I know there's a bunch of football going on, but talk about the Cowboys. CD gets his big contract. He looks solid against the Browns, made some big catches, but, I mean, he just really didn't have to do much once the Cowboys went up big. And now Micah Parsons, they're saying his contract is getting on pause until after the season, so he's going to be playing with a chip on the shoulder. So on the offensive side, you got two guys that are happy they're paid and they're balling out. And now on the defensive side, you got Micah Parsons, who's probably a little pissed off, and he's going to be playing a lot angrier, chip on his shoulder. You talked about how he was unblockable in that Browns game. So, yeah, at home, I mean, early in the season, Jerry's World is going to be rocking. That little, I know we've all seen the little meme of the Cowboys cycle, and it's like, we're here now.
We them boys.
Yeah, start off the season strong. So, yeah, this is when, it's good to be a Cowboys fan. It's great right now. Everything's riding high. So, yeah, unfortunately, the Saints, who I still don't think are one of the better teams. I just think they got to play the Panthers, who are probably worse than them. But, yeah, I think we see Derek Carr and company come down to earth drastically here to where the Cowboys, I am a hater. I am an Eagles fan, much like the 49ers. But, you can't take away how good they looked against the Browns on the road. I was, a little higher on the Browns in that game especially. But defense was flying around. They stepped up, made some big plays. And honestly, in that first quarter, when Dak needed to make some throws and that offense had to go down the field, Dak Prescott looked pretty good. Connection there with CeeDee Lamb. Now, Jake Ferguson is banged up, question marks there, but CeeDee Lamb, he's getting involved. They're lining him up in the slot. They're giving him handoffs, finding creative ways to get their best player the football. Brandon Cooks found the end zone, so nice to see him get involved there. So, yeah, I think the Cowboys, a easier matchup at home against a lot lesser opponent in the Saints. I like the Cowboys in the points here as well, 6.5. I think they smash it.
Yeah, Dallas Cowboys cycle. Season starts, beat up on bad teams.
Yeah.
Fans get delusional. We them boys, this is our year.
And lose in the playoffs.
Choke in the playoffs, yep. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Saints already beating up on the Panthers. Not too much there. Derek Carr looked like, when he was drafted. Also, Fresno State, but looked like when he was drafted, hooking up for the Raiders, making big plays, looking like a franchise quarterback. Cowboys, I mean, I talked about it with the Browns. It just got out of hand quick. And Micah, that defensive line was having a field day in the backfield. So Deshaun Watson running for his life. Saints, I mean, Derek Carr, less mobile. He's going to be fighting for his life back there. If they don't have a game plan to limit Micah, the thing that I really liked from the Cowboys that they did is they took Myles Garrett out the game, completely out the game. Even from the first play, getting triple teamed, Dalvin Tomlinson was able to get a big sack. From that point on, they limit Myles Garrett. The rest of the D-line really couldn't do anything. Dak getting the ball out quick at times as well. Picking and choosing. Pressures. Brown's in the house. He's able to know his reads and know Brandon Cooks. Hey, this corner post, touchdown, easy. He dropped it right on the money. Perfect touch on it. Dak looked really good. You mentioned that contract. He's feeling good, playing good after that week 1. They were hitting on all cylinders. So I got them beating the Saints at home. I mean, early on in the year, one of the best regular season offenses, if not the best, when it comes to the regular season, the Dallas Cowboys are. So give me them at home against the Saints. Should be, 6.5. Should be easy work, especially, coming off a way better defense that should have been in the Cleveland Browns. Now playing, the Saints, who decent defense, but nothing really to rave about over there in New Orleans. So Cowboys at home. I'll take the spread too. Next game up, man. The Colts travel to Green Bay and play Jordan Loveless. Packers 3.5-point favorites are the Colts. Who do you like here?
I think the Colts win purely because Jordan Love isn't there. I mean, tough loss for the Packers week 1, but it was a weird game in Brazil. Horrible field. First time NFL teams have played in South America in the Southern Hemisphere. Not taking away too much from either side, either team there. But what you want to do take away is how good Jordan Reed looked. He was out there making a bunch of big plays. Josh Jacobs really got it going in the second half. So those are some positive signs for this Packers offense. Defensively, some questions there. Jair Alexander talking about he wants to travel. He wants the best quarterback or the best receiver. He wants the number 1 matchup. Didn't have the best night, but there's not an A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith on the Colts, so that'll be good for him. Unfortunately, they don't have Jordan Love, but fortunately for the case scenario, what happened? They got the best news possible to where he's not on IR. Nothing serious. It just looked like a sprain. He'll be out 3 to 4 weeks. We'll see when he comes back, but not an extended period of time, which is great news for the Packers and Jordan Love. You don't really want to wish injury on anyone. So, yeah, but on the Colts side of the ball, I mean, Anthony Richardson is literally just like the epitome of like a highlight play. Like, I mean, that one throw he made, everyone's been talking about it. Like, slips off the back foot, feet aren't set, absolutely no power from his lower body, from like chest down, and just flicks the ball 60 yards, 70 yards down the field and hits Alex Pierce in stride. And then later on in the game, comes back and hits another absolute seed down the field. Missed a couple other ones too. Now, don't ask him to throw a 5-yard in route. It's going to be nowhere near the receiver. But if you need him to throw a 50-yard bomb on the move down the field, it's going to be on the money. So just, the ultimate roller coaster ride here with the Colts. If they can just somehow figure out how to get Anthony Richardson to, hit the layups, this team could be something special. But until that happens, I think you'll get a lot more of the inconsistency, a lot of the highs and a lot of the lows as well with Anthony Richardson's accuracy. And then, his just pure power and strength on the ground, in the red zone. He's just running over defenders, dragging dudes into the end zone. Just really amazing to see a quarterback kind of be able to move and throw like that and be that athletic. I think they have enough to beat the Packers without Jordan Love on the road. Saw the Packers were reaching out to Ryan Tannehill. Like, I mean,
should have picked him up.
Don't want Malik Willis to be your quarterback.
Yeah,
I can tell you that. But yeah, the Packers are going to be able to see what Malik Willis should have been with Anthony Richardson, and he's nowhere even near as good as what his ceiling is. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an ugly game. It'll come down to 1 or 2 big throws to Anthony Richardson, but other than that, I really just don't see a way the Packers can win this game without Jordan Love.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Colts, Anthony Richardson, big plays downfield, 65 air yards, third longest in air completion, I think, since next gen stats was a thing. So he didn't even use his legs. You mentioned he gets his legs under it. Not even a Hail Mary. He could have thrown that 70, 80 yards downfield.
Just kept going.
Yeah, so in stride, too, is the craziest thing. Didn't miss a beat with Alec Pierce. You mentioned the Packers. Jaden Reed, really the bright spot of the Packers offense last week. Jordan Love, he was leading them down the field in that last quarter, or last drive of the game in the fourth quarter before he went down with that knee injury. Looking like a 3-week injury for a quarterback. Could be 4 weeks. He's 3 to 4 weeks, but lean towards the shorter 3. And, I mean, it's Malik Willis. Not to take away from this Packers team and what they showed against the Eagles in Brazil. But I'll take, the Colts without Anthony Richardson. I don't even know who their backup. Oh, Joe Flacco.
Flacco, yeah.
Yeah, they should ask for a trade for Joe Flacco. I mean,
pre-game trade.
Yeah, they
just borrow him for the game, put a better product on the field.
Yeah, just for the NFL fans to watch something good. Yeah, Malik Willis. There's a reason Tennessee moved on for him, and then you got Will Levis, meme of the weekend, on his knees, hands on his head. So, give me the Colts. I don't even know if I like them with the points, but I think they'll win this football game. Next game up, man, the Cleveland Browns travel to Jacksonville, play the Jaguars, and Jags 3-point favorites in this one. Your pick.
Similar to, the Dolphins and Bills game we talked about earlier, two teams coming off of similar victories, still some questions to answer. Two teams coming off of disappointing losses with some questions to answer. I'll let you talk about your Browns, just give my quick input. Deshaun Watson looks washed, man. Every single deep ball he threw down the field, it just was outside of the white line. It didn't even seem like there was a chance for the receiver to make a play on the ball. Now, the O-line didn't really help. Not a lot of help from the receivers. You mentioned a couple drops, but there was just some throws down the field where it's why even throw that if you're just going to throw it 10 yards out of bounds? You're not even giving them a chance. Running around, running into a couple sacks, it looked bad, man, and I expected a lot more from this Browns defense. You mentioned Myles Garrett being able to get taken out of the game. CeeDee Lamb was giving the secondary some work. It was good coverage. Those guys were there. It's just, better ball, better catch from CeeDee Lamb and Dak. They say better offense beats good defense. So you just saw that there. So you want to see the Browns step up, make some better plays. And then on the Jags side of the ball, I just feel like every season they just find new ways to lose games. It's just insane. Doug Peterson experience as an Eagles fan doesn't get much better. He won the Super Bowl and just kind of went downhill from there. Trevor Lawrence, I think, continues to show flashes. Couple really nice throws to Brian Thomas. You got the touchdown. That was perfect. And then the other throw in the end zone where Jalen Ramsey got the pass interference call. It looked like that was going to be another touchdown as well. So I think Lawrence looked fine. He looked okay. Just Etienne fumbling the ball, big mistakes, and the big moments where, you just can't have these things happen. Defense didn't really give you much help in the second half. Big question marks here for both of the teams, but I'm going to take the Jags at home. I just think Trevor Lawrence is just a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson at this point. I think I'm a little more confident in them, especially at home. I think there's some, a world where the Jags get better and they clean up some of those turnovers, some of those mistakes, and they're a competent football team, whereas the Browns, as long as Deshaun Watson is back there, and until I see a good Deshaun Watson game, I just don't have any belief in this Browns offense and this quarterback. Looks like, you're going to add another name to that list of Browns starting quarterbacks. 39 at this point or something since, 2000? Some crazy number like that. It's going to be a close game. I could see the Browns winning, but I'm going to take the Jags here at home.
Yeah, piggybacking off that quarterback, they said a lot of great Browns quarterbacks over the years. First one was Otto Graham. Don't even know who the second one. And Bernie Kosar was the last one, and he played in the 80s. So let that go ahead and sink in. First off, I'm going to pick the Browns. And the Deshaun Watson, this and that. At this point, I just got to believe in something because my hopes and dreams for the next 4 months rely on this team being a competent football team and Deshaun Watson not looking like the worst quarterback in the league. Maybe not even the worst, but he's up there like he did last week. You mentioned the deep balls. Now, they did have some zip on him. I will say he had some zip on the ball.
Yeah, never in history balls, bro. There's no chance any of those passes were completed.
Hey, you gotta take the small wins from that week 1 loss. Fighting for his life, man. So, offense, we got to clean up the penalties, the false starts, pre-snap, get into all the week 1 flags of illegal formations, this and that. Whatever it is, they got to hit the film room heavy. Ken Dorsey was brought in to change the Kevin Stefanski offense, more pre-snap motions, everything else involved. Yet this team was the week 1 least amount of pre-snap motions, least amount of anything pre-snap from the Browns. So I don't know if Ken Dorsey was giving his input to Kevin Stefanski and he just wasn't having it. There was a point where Amari Cooper got the play in, Deshaun Watson's talking, and Amari Cooper just shakes his head. So, yeah, I mean,
he wished that IU trade went through.
I hope not, man. Shout out Coop, man. But, yeah, they got to clean up all aspects of football. Defense, you're supposed to be a top-end defense, and you got walked on. You mentioned sticky coverage from Ward. CD just grabbed it, didn't get his head turned. Martin Emerson was there on a couple passes, but just better offense. And pass rush was non-existent. So you look at it, these guys are supposed to be an elite-level defense. Now, need the offense to perform better. Hopefully that happens, but this defense looked like nothing that they're supposed to be as well. And bright spot was Hardy returning punts and kicks. That was about it. So I'm going to take the Browns. You mentioned the Jags. T-Law looks good. But the Doug Peterson experiment, question marks there. Play calling and just the Jags. I don't even want to say the Jags being the Jags because that's what Micah told Cleveland last year. And look what he just did to us. So, but I'm going to take the Browns on the road. No particular reason at all. Could see the Jags winning 100%. And it could be, another 5 years in Cleveland of pain. Jets-Titans is our next game up. In Tennessee. Just talked about Will Levis. -4 Jets on the spread. Who you got?
Yeah, give me the Jets here. A disappointing game for them, definitely coming off of that 49ers matchup where, I picked the Jets to beat the 49ers. I thought they'd be a lot more competitive. And, if you would have told me Aaron Rodgers in that offense looked mediocre, middle of the pack, and that'd be the best thing to come for this game, I'd be absolutely shocked because that defense looked very, very troubling. I mean, we talked about the 49ers and what they were able to do earlier, so I'm not going to sit here and, basically beat a dead horse. But, I mean, this Jets defense looked like a dead horse on the field yesterday. Like, it was not good whatsoever. Aaron Rodgers in that offense, you talked about, they had that one good drive, showed glimpses. That was a really good scoring drive. Got Garrett Wilson involved. He got pretty much like all of his touches on that one drive. And Breece Hall punches it in. But outside of that, that defense has got to tighten up. Now, luckily, they get to play Will Levis, who literally just gave the game away to the Bears in that defense last week. So, maybe a couple gift wrap presents from Will Levis here will get the confidence back for that Jets defense where, Will Levis in the grasp of a defensive lineman just flicking balls up in the air for pick sixes. You talk about, him on his knees, him showing on the sideline, screaming, like just losing his mind. Not a good look for the Titans. You move off of Mike Vrabel, arguably one of the most head-scratching moves in the league. Looked to be one of the better coaches. Always seemed to have this Titans team overperforming, and now you're stuck with Will Levis as your quarterback. Kind of seems like you're taking a step back. Tough week one matchup for the Jets. I think they can get back on track here. I think, everyone was holding their breath, Jets fans. Rodgers made it that healthy. That's kind of all you can ask for at this point. So, yeah, I think the Jets cover the 4.5 on the road here against the Titans.
Yeah, the Will Levis experiment looked good in that first half a little bit. Didn't look good in that second half. I mean, it was awful for the Titans. They threw the game away. Will Levis single-handedly threw the game away. And you talked about the Jets, talked about that defense. I really don't think it's going to be a hard time. They're playing this Tennessee offense that really couldn't do anything. We mentioned the Bears' defense, that they were going to be sleeper elite defense. Didn't expect them to win that game single-handedly. Obviously, they got the kick return touchdown or punt return touchdown.
Block punt, yeah.
Block punt, that's what it was, yeah.
Special teams.
For a touchdown. So you look at it, it's like the Jets, they literally did the same thing against the Niners. I think they could win the game, and they didn't play well against the Niners whatsoever. The one drive, they look good. Breece Hall, ball security, he'll get that back right. Going to be a feature back in this league, especially for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, another game removed from that Achilles injury, finally got some game reps under him. He's healthy heading into this week. I think it's going to be a cakewalk for the Jets, in all honesty. I think they beat up on the Titans in Nashville. Nothing much to say with the Will Levis. I got him in a super flex league, and boy, did he let me down. I'm about to play Zamir White, who had 3 points over him at this point. Bucks Lions in Detroit. Overtime dub for the Lions last week against the Rams. Who you have in this one?
I'm going to take the Lions here. And, this game against the Rams was a really good game Sunday night, and it kind of has me feeling a little more confident in our picks of having the Packers winning the division. Now, Jordan Love going out doesn't really help, but this Lions team, it kind of felt like they snuck away with the victory here at the end. Coming down to overtime, they happened to get the ball first, and you don't want to take any credit away from them, because when they got the ball, they literally just ran it down their throat. David Montgomery absolutely turned up. Jahmyr Gibbs got a couple touches there in overtime, but during the game, you saw, dare I say, vintage Jared Goff, some questionable throws there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, pretty much a ghost, not involved at all. It's the Jameson Williams show, who, he's the one that had the big plays down the field, got into the end zones, flying around. So I think there's some things to be positive, some positive outlooks here. But defensively, man, it just looked like Matthew Stafford had all the answers, even with all the injuries. They were super banged up. Puka Nacua goes out. We got to see, vintage Stafford Cup just absolutely go to work on that defense down the stretch. Big third down throws from Matthew Stafford, hanging in the pocket, making some big completions against this Lions defense. So a little questionable, especially for a Bucs team coming off of a nice win against the Commanders, now similar to the Saints. How really good are they? We talked about some of these other teams coming off the extended preseason game. I think you can put the Bucs in that category, playing against the Commanders, who pretty much just haven't, I don't know what they're doing over there. So this will be a real test for the Buccaneers. Played them close in the playoffs last season. So I'd probably take the Bucs with the points here if I was going to bet this game. I might, but I do think the Lions at home handle business. Baker and this offense goes out. I think they can put up some points, put up some numbers, but ultimately this Lions, this run game, this offensive line, I think they're just too good at home. And I think the Lions, they showed some weaknesses. I think, a lot of people picked them to win the Super Bowl, a lot of hype coming out of them. I don't think they can get there this season based off of week one. Now we'll see how things go. We'll talk about it. But this upcoming week, I think we get a good game in the Lions and Bucs. I think the Lions handle business at home.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Lions got some key red zone defense when they needed it, when Stafford was driving down the field. You know, a lot of people, blue end zones, blue jerseys, blue wall padding. A lot of comments there. There's camouflage. Matthew Stafford couldn't see Kirby Joseph. But I do think -7, big spread. I would take the Bucks with that. Being said, I still like the Lions in this one winning it. You mentioned when they got the ball, they just turned around and Jared Goff did his best. LA Rams handed off to Todd Gurley and watch him work. That's basically what he did in overtime. So you mentioned the big plays, the J-Mo, Amon-Ra, non-existent, Sam Laporta, not looking like the rookie Sam Laporta. I still like the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs, when he does get his touches, obviously explosive playmaker as well. Think it's going to be a little bit too much firepower. Mike Evans does look like he's on his way to another 1,000-yard season. Chris Godwin, if he could stay healthy, this Bucs team favorite in that NFC South right now. So I have the Lions at home getting this dub. Expect the Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta. Expect those guys to get going. Winfield's going to be back there for the Bucs. Maybe not as big a game from J-Mo. We'll see when it comes to that. But, you know, they're going to lean heavily on the run. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, 1-2 punch. You know what the Lions are about. Dan Campbell coached. Raiders, Ravens in Baltimore, M&T Bank Stadium. 2 0-1 teams here, 9.5-point spread. Ravens are the favorites. Who do you have?
Ravens here, man. Tough first game of the year. It literally came down to last play, inches away from tying the game and having a chance to win it. With that being said, they get the Raiders here. I mean, this is one of those get-right games, get back on track. Ravens at home, 9.5. I think they blow this out of the water. Only question marks I would have is that Ravens offensive line had some troubles going up against this Raiders defensive line, their strong suit. You know, we saw Crosby not have his best game. Christian Wilkins, you mentioned, kind of disappeared. But I think that Chargers offensive line is a lot better than what this Ravens offensive line showed against the Chiefs. So we saw Chris Jones have a big game from that interior. Maybe we see Christian Wilkins kind of wake up. Max Crosby, he's always due for, a big game if you don't have someone out there helping or, sending the chips. So I think that Ravens defensive line can give this Ravens team some trouble. But, I mean, ultimately, this Ravens defense, I think they, come up big, couple big turnovers. And, yeah, I think Lamar, he'll get out. He'll create, even if that offensive line can't hang up. He'll find some big plays down the field. Likely looked really good. I think Andrews gets back on track. Zay Flowers down the field. They'll hook up a couple times. So, yeah, I like the Ravens to get their first win of the season here at home. So, give me the Ravens with the points.
Yeah, we call it exactly get-right game. Week 2, maybe not a get-right game, but the Ravens back on track. Week 1, you play the Super Bowl defending champs, and the Kansas City Chiefs obviously heavily penalized. They got in the film room. They had an extended week, mini bye. They're able to get right, get in the film room, rest up from that game as well. They're all going to come back fully rested, fully healthy. Lamar, obviously, questions about that throw late in the game, the end of the game, where he said he didn't even see Zay Flowers. He was throwing a Bateman, who was next to Flowers and missed a wide open Zay Flowers in the end zone. Obviously, the likely toe. Comparisons to KD in the playoffs, foot on the line. Whatever it is, this Raiders team is just outmatched compared to this Ravens team. The Raiders, Devontae Adams, is he going to be there all year is the big question mark. Are they going to move on from him from some point this year? Gardner Minshew being the quarterback, how long is he going to be at the helm? A lot of question marks going on in Vegas with their defensive line being the strong suit, them being shut down and obliterated last week between the pass rush and the run stuff. Obviously, they might have some success against this Ravens team, but LJ, he's the toughest to take down. He's able to escape, make plays with his legs, and he's a nightmare matchup for D-line. So I think it kind of neutralizes this Raiders D-line pretty easily. So give me the Ravens at home. It should be easy. 10 points is a lot, but I'd lean towards that too. So next game up, man, the Rams travel to Arizona to play the Cardinals with the Cardinals 2-point favorites.
Yeah, I think this could be a really interesting game. Cardinals, we kind of touched on, going over the Bills. Played good in the first half, but after that, it just kind of seemed like the offense stalled out. Marvin Harrison Jr., nowhere to be found. A lot of expectations coming in for him this season. Kyler Murray looked okay, but I mean, the Cardinals just looked like a young team with some growing to do. But they're at home, and they always seem to play the Rams pretty good. And the Rams, coming off of that tough Detroit game we mentioned, a lot of injuries, man. They're banged up. Puka on the IR, lost a couple of guys on the offensive line. It's not what you want to hear when you have a veteran, immobile quarterback back there like Stafford. So that won't really help, especially with the run game. Kyron Williams, you want to get him going. Injuries on the O-line, not the best. I think this will be a close game. I like Matt Stafford and these Rams a little bit more, especially what we saw between him and Cooper Kupp, where, down the stretch for a couple series there, it just looked like unguardable.
Super Bowl Stafford.
Like unguardable. Yeah, Super Bowl Stafford and Kupp, MVP Kupp. I mean, him lining up in that motion, those little deep in routes, hitting them in the flat. They just, Sean McVay is just a brilliant play caller. He's going to find ways to get his guys the ball. And when you have someone, Cooper Kupp, able to get open, able to create space like that, and Stafford, quarterback with all the experience, he can make all the throws. It works. That trio right there, they get it done. So I like the Rams here in a close one on the road, but I think they do squeak out with a victory here. Just want to see them get healthy.
I'm right there with you. K1 showed flashes early on in the game and then sort of slowed down, missed a wide open Marvin Harrison down the sideline for a touchdown. Would have got him his first career touchdown, but showed some flashes high on Kyler in the Cardinals this season. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Rams. I am higher on the Cardinals, but you mentioned that Stafford Kupp connection. Kupp hasn't lost a single step. Looked just as good as he did in his Triple Crown year. Expect that run game to get going. I know injuries to the O-line. Cardinals defense, we talked about it. Outside of Budda Baker, who is there really to name? Kaiser White. Other than that, there's not a notable player on this Cardinals defense, which also was the reason that the Bills were able to get down the field, score some points. Obviously, you had the Kyler turnover. That was costly when they were driving, but outside of that, man, I think this Rams team might be close, but no Puka. You got Parkinson involved last week for Stafford. He got, I think, 8 targets, something like that.
Marcus Robinson had a big catch on third down.
Yeah, D-Rob, Florida legend. He's going to make a play every once in a while for the Rams. Give me Stafford just solely based off I trust him more in that Cardinals defense. I don't trust whatsoever. They look like that same Cardinals defense where Budda Baker was yelling and screaming, and he's the only one with heart on that defensive side of the ball. So,
and he's the one Josh Allen was hurtling into the end zone. So.
I mean, you can't defend him on that one, but you got the biggest quarterback in the league and freak athlete of Josh Allen. So, next game up, Bengals Chiefs, Arrowhead Stadium. 6-point favorites against this Bengals team. AFC matchup from 2019, 2020, 2019, 2020. What was it one?
It was 2021, I think.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, when they beat the
2020 was Burrow's rookie.
Played the Rams. Yeah. Give me the Chiefs, man. I mean, we saw what they did on Thursday night. Didn't play their best game, and they went out and beat one of the better teams in the Baltimore Ravens. Patrick Mahomes still looks like the best quarterback in the league. Defense still solid enough. Now Mahomes actually has some legit weapons. You saw what happened when Worthy got the ball in his hands. Rashee Rice is just looking like a better and more explosive Travis Kelce at this point. I mean, they're lining up Rashee Rice in the slot, doing that little motion with him to get him the free releases. He's working the middle of the field now, and then Kelce just comes in and makes his, 2 to 3 catches, big plays down the field whenever he has to. Isaiah Pacheco looks explosive as ever out of the backfield. So, yeah, the league's in trouble, man. Bengals, they just lost to the Patriots at home. Give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, noted perfectly, man. Not a believer in this Bengals team. Obviously, touched on them. Got to lean on that superstar power. Trent McDuffie, excellent corner on the outside. And sorry, I forget his name. The Chiefs corner number 2 right now. He showed some flashes last week against the Ravens.
McDuffie?
No, their current number 2.
Their second corner?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
He showed some flashes of making some plays on the outside.
Oh, is it Lenore? Was it something? I don't know.
I forget who it is, but with them losing Snead last year, stepping up into that role, that CB2, looked fine. And McDuffie, obviously, an elite corner on the outside. Whether they have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase both on the field, we'll see about that. Hollywood Brown could come back this week as well. Was it Connor? I think it was Jalen Watson in the slot, actually. But regardless, this Chiefs team, too much superstar power. You mentioned Xavier Worthy, first career touch. He ends up in the end zone. How fitting for the Chiefs to find, another guy with speed that Mahomes can find a way to air it out downfield, and Andy Reid get creative with and just get him touches out in space to make plays. The league's in trouble. Couldn't have said it any better. And the Bengals I think they're in their own league of trouble right now. So give me the Chiefs at home. I think they cover 6 pretty comfortably. Next game up, man, the Steelers travel to Denver, take on Bo Nix and the Broncos. Who do you like here?
Steelers, one of the teams I was wrong on coming into the season. I just didn't think they would be able to figure out a way to do it once again. But after 1 week, they're the only team with a win in their division. So,
yeah.
Give me the Steelers, man. I talked about that Niners offense looking like one of, if not the best units. If you want to just talk about best players, if TJ Watt was just on the screen that entire time the Atlanta Falcons were on offense, it was just insane how dominant he looked. It literally looked like his brother just taking over games, creating turnovers, jumping on fumbles, creating sacks, big TFLs. TJ Watt was literally everywhere. Yelling at the refs, not getting calls right. It was just insane. He literally looked like a Madden X Factor the entire game, just taking over the game. So, yeah, man, this Steelers defense is legit, man. One of the better defenses in the league. Tomlin, year in, year out, has those guys coached. And whether it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, look like it's going to be Fields again this next week. Regardless, just throw it to George Pickens and don't do anything else. Hand the ball off and throw it to Pickens. That's literally all they have to do. And I think this Steelers team can be competitive, maybe find a wild card spot just based off how they're looking. Boswell, he was automatic. Didn't score a touchdown on offense. He hit a couple deep field goals. This Falcons team, man, we'll talk about them. We'll get to the last game. But, yeah, this Steelers defense looks legit, looks like one of the better units in the NFL. And offensively, they just don't have to turn the ball over, don't do too much, and they'll be able to win some games. Against this Broncos, Bo Nix, young quarterback, we all saw the clip where, Bo Nix throws the ball in double coverage, and before you even see the interception, the announcer's oh no. It's going to be a tough learning experience. And if that Seahawks defense gave Bo Nix some trouble, I would not want to be a Broncos fan and watch him go up against the Steelers defense, especially with some of those injuries on that offensive line for the Seahawks. You come in and now throw someone like TJ Watt out there, it's going to be a welcome to the NFL moment for Bo Nix for sure against this Steelers defense. I don't see a way where this Broncos offense moves the ball, gets any positive yards whatsoever. It's going to be tough. Steelers might cover the 3 points 6-0. I don't know. But, yeah, give me the Steelers on the road. This defense travels. It's going to be tough for a rookie quarterback to go up against a unit like this.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at my pick. I picked the Broncos. Not really sure my thought process when I did this.
When I saw that, I was like, bro, you picked the Steelers last week over the Falcons, and now Broncos over the Steelers. I was like, what?
Yeah, I really don't know why. I was thinking about doing a mid-episode switcheroo, but
I would if I was you, fam.
I'm gonna stick with whatever I was sticking with last night and pick the Broncos. Bo Nix bounce back game. You mentioned that Steelers defense, how elite they were and took over that game. And I mentioned They're good enough to win you 8-9 games defense alone. And they went out there and did it against the Falcons. Chris Boswell, he was cashed with the leg. So I don't know what I was doing. Maybe the run game gets going for Denver. Maybe they make a play. Special teams. It's going to be one of those freak games. And you mentioned it. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring. I think that over-under's got to be set pretty low. Hopefully the mile high maybe gets to the Steelers a little bit. But, yeah, just give me the Broncos. And you mentioned TJ Watt. He's putting up a case for DPOY already. So, next game up, man, Bears-Texans in Houston, NRG Stadium. Your pick.
I think this will be a fun matchup. You know, we talked about the Bears and their defense and special teams pretty much, you know, sucking the soul out of Will Levis and the Titans. No pun intended. Yeah, I think we definitely see a better game here from Caleb Williams. Only 93 yards. Just all over the place on offense. Offensive line did absolutely zero help for him. Holding on to the ball, you mentioned scrambling, running around, big tackle for loss, big sack. You just can't do that in the NFL, and didn't get much help on the perimeter as well. Keenan Allen dropped a touchdown, couple miscues, just not on the same page. And now I think all of the guys on the receiver group are banged up or coming in with some question marks in terms of injuries. So you just want to see them get healthier, get better there. Texans at home. CJ Stroud started a little slow, like maybe one or two series, but after that, once that run game got going, I mean, he just picked up exactly where he left off. Him and Nico Collins, that connection is crazy. Found Tank Dell a couple times as well. And then, they just give Stephon Diggs the fluff stats, the padded stats, give him a couple touchdowns just so he doesn't destroy this locker room. Diggs really didn't do much. He just had the 2 touchdowns. But, in terms of the number one target, it was Nico Collins. He had the most receptions, the most targets, and yards. So outside of the 2 touchdowns, everyone's like, Stephon Diggs is back. I think he's the number 3 option on his team right now. Number 4 if you want to count Joe Mixon running the ball. But regardless, this Texans team is firing on all cylinders. CJ Stroud coming up clutch, making the big throw on 3rd and 11 to Nico Collins to kind of ice the game. Ice in his veins. This Texans team is fun. They're going to score a bunch of points. Defense kind of gets the luxury of always, playing with a lead or playing in close games. You don't really have to worry about getting ran over or teams trying to milk you. So, yeah. I like the Texans, CJ Stroud. I think, the addition to Joe Mixon, really, really big help, especially with, as good as CJ Stroud is, he's still a young quarterback. Having a run game, having someone to take a little weight off of his shoulders like Joe Mixon is a big help. And we mentioned, veteran presidents like Stephon Diggs, like Joe Mixon, those guys will really, really help this team in terms of growing and reaching that next step. So Mixon got it done on the ground. Stroud got it done through the air. They got a big win against the Colts last week, division rival. I think they take care of business here at home against Caleb Williams. I think this will be a fun game. I think we see some good quarterback play, but ultimately, CJ Stroud is just an elite QB, and if you're an elite quarterback, you gotta win games like this. So prime time, give me the Texans,
especially at home too. You touched on it. Texans, Stroud looked a little bit slow. Been saying Nico Collins is that true number 1 receiver. Doesn't get the credit, he kind of deserves being at, the name power of Stephon Diggs and what Tank Dell did with his explosive plays. Nico Collins, just a secure receiver. He's going to get the job done. Stroud trusts him, leaned on him heavily last year, especially when Tank went out. You mentioned Diggs might be the 4th. Some games he might be the 5th at Dalton Schultz, the security blanket tight end position gets it going. So I expect some iPads and stuff to be flying on the sideline, that's for sure. But, yeah, the Bears, he touched on it. Defense, special teams, they made their plays. I think it's just going to be too much for the Texans. Caleb Williams, I think he gets his first career touchdown this week against the Texans, but I still think it's not enough against this Houston team with all those weapons. Getting back on the same page, and D'Amico Ryans looks like, one of the best coaches in the league. He's got his guys firing on all cylinders. So give me the Texans at home here. Sunday night, prime time. Caleb Williams, He's used to those night games. I think the light's a little too bright here in this one, but it's going to lead us to our Monday night game. The Atlanta Falcons travel to Lincoln Financial Field to play your Philadelphia Eagles. 6.5-point favorites here. I actually, let me go first real quick.
Yeah,
Eagles,
go ahead. Yeah.
Eagles, really good game. Saquon, obviously, star addition. Know you're going to get into that. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, they made their plays when they needed it. Defense could have opened the game up with that pick six. Sure you'll touch on that. And the Falcons, Kirk Cousins, I've been saying he needs a little time to get back from that injury. Expect him to progress a little bit this week. I might take the Falcons plus 6.5, but I got the Eagles winning this one. I think they're going to be just fine against this Falcons team, even if they get it going and Kirk gets it going. I think the Eagles got a pretty easy game here, Monday Night Football, and Jalen Hurts does look back, so calm down.
It was a good game from the Eagles overall. I have some thoughts. We were out for that game, so didn't really get to sit down and watch and dissect every single play. We were out in a pretty rowdy environment. So
Why was it rowdy though?
Well, we were in the mini link, man.
Yeah, a lot of Philly fans, man. It doesn't matter where you are. The worst fan base there is.
That was a fun experience, but going back, watching some of the game and the highlights and stuff. This Eagles team is pretty much exactly what I thought they would be. Only just slightly disappointed in the defensive line. I thought we'd see more from Jalen Carter. Josh Sweat made a big splash play in the beginning, but other than that, it's pretty much exactly what I thought this Eagles team would be. Unfortunately, you said Jalen Hurts is back. I don't think 2022 Hurts will ever be back. I think that was just peak Hurts. Now I think Jalen Hurts is a solid starting quarterback. He's good enough to get your team over the hump, and I think you can win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. I just think he's closer to the Jared Goffs of the world than he is to the Patrick Mahomes in terms of quarterbacking and how he played. Because he's just 2 or 3 plays, he's just gonna make just a what the F throw. Like, why did you make that play? And you saw that in the Packers game. Red zone turnover, on a drive where it looked like they were gonna put the game away. Like, you score a touchdown there, there's pretty much no chance the Packers come back. He rolls out, buys time, holds onto the ball, throws a pick, and then early in the game on the first possession after dropping a snap or Saquon getting tackled, he throws an interception up the middle of the field into what looked like triple coverage. So you're just going to get those plays. But with that being said, you have the best cast of weapons around him. I mean, you talked about Saquon Barkley. You put him in that Eagles offense, and it looked like he was back at Penn State, man, going for that Heisman. The whole Eagles offensive line was opening up, getting him involved in the passing game, catching the wheel route down the field, explosive runs in between the tackles, bouncing it outside. I mean, this is just the element that the Eagles haven't had since LaShawn McCoy, and I think Saquon easily is going to be the next 1,000-yard rusher since LaShawn McCoy. He's super explosive, super talented. As long as he's healthy, I think this Eagles offense is going to be rolling. And then on the outside, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, you just see the big playability from A.J. Brown. I was telling you before the game, cash to A.J. Brown anytime TD. That's going to be one of the best bets you can have all year, because if there's going to be a big play down the field, Jalen Hurts is looking to A.J. Brown, and he has that run after catch ability. Super strong, super fast. He can make those big plays. And then on that, drive down the stretch where you got to hit those tough passes, you got to hit those intermediate, shots to the sideline, shots in the middle of the field, tough catches. He's looking for Devontae Smith. He's going to create that separation. I like how Kellen Moore is using him, getting Smitty in motion, finding ways to get the ball into his hands quick. I like this offense, man. I think it's going to be a super exciting offense. I think they're going to score a bunch of points outside of the couple questionable Jalen Hurts plays. I think the offense will be fine. My concern was on the defense. I had concern with this defense. Since the Super Bowl and James Bradbury got called for holding, ever since then, there's been question marks, and I don't think this defense has improved much. But what I will say is there's hope. There's room for improvement. You saw flashes. Quinyon Mitchell, I thought he played excellent for his first game. The entire training camp and preseason, he was getting reps in the nickel. Isaiah Rodgers, out a couple days before the game. He plays on the outside. I'd be shocked if they move him from the outside. He looked really good on the perimeter against the, Packers receiver room. We talked about they got some weapons. Jordan Love is a solid quarterback. He was on the perimeter making plays, gave up a couple catches. I mean, rookie growing mistakes, but overall, I thought he looked really good, showed some athleticism, running down the field with Christian Watson in the one-on-one goal ball. A couple of nice pass breakups, showed that length, getting those long arms in there. And then, talked about the defensive line. I was disappointed, man. But for me, surprising, the most part I was happy about. And you know how I feel about, Eagles linebackers, man. That's always a big topic. But listen, Zach Bond had the big sack at the end of the game. He was flying around. Nakobe Dean, as long as he's not in pass coverage, when he's coming downhill, he had that big hit on the screen out to the perimeter, made some big plays in the run game. I'm liking this linebacker unit, man. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean, they're flying around. They're making plays. Devin White, I think he comes back, and you see him in packages when they want to blitz the quarterback and stuff like that. But in terms of every down linebackers, I think Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean are who you want to rock with. Vontae Maddox, I just need Isaiah Rodgers to get back healthy. He was targeted a couple times. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he got banged up, so maybe we see Maddox go back to safety and Isaiah Rodgers comes back. Maybe he moves back in the slot because I really hope they keep Quinyon Mitchell outside. And, your boy, white boy Reed, man, a big turnover that kind of pretty much flipped the game to where it was going back and forth, and it kind of seemed like whichever defense made a big stop or big play at this moment had a chance to win the game. And Reed Blankenship came up with a nice interception. I think that's going to have to be, how this defense lives. It's going to be the big splash play or the big turnover to get the ball back to the offense, because right now I think the Eagles are going to have to win games scoring more points than other teams. I don't think early in the season or right now this defense is good enough to get consistent stops. So the big splash plays, maybe a strip sack here or there. Disappointed. Didn't really see Bryce Huff make too many big plays. The acquisition, like I mentioned, the defensive line, expected more from Jalen Carter, but he had a couple solid plays, got some nice pressures, and Jordan Davis looked solid in the run game. Just no really big plays from the D-line, but overall, I think this team played good enough. But I'm right there with you. I would take the Falcons' points here, 6.5. I just think that's too much for this Eagles team, the way this defense is playing. But I could easily see this offense coming out and hanging up 45 points on the Falcons, and Kirk Cousins just can't move in the pocket. So, yeah, on the Falcons side, definitely some question marks there. Kirk Cousins looked like a literal statue in the pocket. He's throwing the ball with, 0 power from his lower body, and he's not Anthony Richardson, so he can't do that. And if you get Kirk Cousins just standing back there in the pocket, I do expect this D-line to come up and make some big plays, similar to how the Steelers got going. With that being said, if you have Bijan Robinson, expect a lot from him. This Eagles defense gave up a bunch of rushing yards to Josh Jacobs in the second half. So, like I said, in between the 20s, especially with this Vic Fangio defense, you can, get some yards, get some receptions. They just tighten up down in the red zone, and we kind of saw that against the Packers, especially early off of those first couple turnovers. Held Green Bay to a couple of field goals instead of the big touchdowns, and that really, gave the Eagles a chance to hang in and win the game. So, I think the Falcons, they're able to move the ball. They can get some points up on the offense, but ultimately, I just think this Eagles offense is going to be too overpowering for a lot of units in this league on the defensive side of the ball. Super big explosive plays from literally, even Kenny Gainwell can take a big swing pass to the crib. Like, he's super explosive. Dallas Goedert, all of those weapons. It's sad we won't get 2022 Hurts back, but I think he's good enough to be in. I want him to pass the ball more just because he has all those weapons, be more of a point guard than a playmaker at this point. And if he can do that, this offense continues to, improve. Saw a lot of motion from Kellen Moore, a lot of under the center, snaps for Jalen Hurts, a lot of different variations. I'm like what I'm seeing from this Eagles offense. Defense showed flashes. We continue to see strides. I think this Eagles team will be fine. But right now, I don't like the 6.5. Yeah, like you mentioned, I'd take the Falcons, but this Falcons team has some other questions, and I'm not too sure how long it is before we get to see Michael Penix, another rookie quarterback. So, yeah, we might see him in this game if it gets ugly, but I think the Eagles, the first, second home game of the season because apparently that Brazil game was considered a home game for us, so we lose a real home game. But it's whatever. We won the game. Doesn't matter. The Link will be rocking, coming off of a big win. A lot of expectations, a lot of hope for this Eagles team. I think this will be a fun game, possibly a high-scoring game. I told you also to take the over in that Eagles-Packers game. Wouldn't be mad if you took the over in this game as well. The defense is going to give up some points. So, yeah, I think it'll be a fun game Monday night. But, yeah, I think we see old, washed, injured, and primetime Kirk all just kind of come into one, just horrible combination. And the Eagles get a nice win here.
Forgot primetime Kirk was even a thing. That's how bad he was last week. But it's going to wrap up Go to Go episode 103. Anything else you want to add?
No, man. It's a fun first week of football, man. It's looking to be
Debatable.
an exciting season.
Yeah, Go to Go episode 103. Go to Go pod on TikTok. Go to Go on everything else. And until next week, man, we'll be back with another episode. Peace.